Hi, this is Mike Bale with Banger Inc. Welcome back to our series on the Sage Intacct Advanced Sales Tax and Use Tax Setup. In this section, we're going to talk specifically about the module-specific setup for schedules, what's called tax schedules, and schedule maps. And we're going to go ahead and dive right back into the software and go into it. So if I go back over to Intacct, and again, I'm working back on my help menu here, tax schedules. So basically, we're going to get some more information on what the next step would be to create tax schedules. And one of the things that we talked about previously with tax details is they're module specific, especially order entry and purchasing. Well, tax schedules even more so, because now with tax schedules, accounts receivable, order entry, and purchasing, they do not share the same set of tax schedules. And that's for good reason, because there could be different rules based on receivables versus order entry versus purchasing. So when you are creating these tax schedules, again, consider you need unique IDs for each of the schedules. So I would again recommend using an ID or abbreviation of the module first, and then the state, and then the county or area that you're setting up. So just keep that in mind as we get into here. But right in the help again, it's going to show you what to do to set up a new tax schedule. And we'll go ahead and go into it. And again, I'm going to be at top level, and I'm going to go into order entry, my customer sales tax side again. And under setup, taxes, we've done authorities, we've done details. The next step is actually schedules. So before we can map it, we have to build a schedule. So you can hit the plus button to set up a new one, or we're going to go and click on our schedules. I have some built already. And what you'll notice here is my ID. So now even on the order entry side, it's a little different than we saw on the last step for tax details. In tax detail, I just had Iowa, Des Moines. I didn't break out the OE. Well, here I do want to specifically know what my schedule ID is. So I used an abbreviation of OE for order entry, state just like before, and the county just like before. And what you're going to do here is click add, and it's going to want that ID and a description of it. And then inside your tax schedule, you're going to have the ability to link different tax IDs or detailed tax IDs that we set up in the prior session. So for example, we talked about needing to break it out by county and state. So if you had a rate specific to the state, I can say I want to grab the Iowa state detail and also the county portion for Des Moines and make one big tax rate for the two of them. And you'll notice here they're combined. Now keep in mind I have I already had this set up as 7 in each side, but basically you can have that all pre-fill in. So there's states 3%, and then in this case you'd have Des Moines, which would be 7%. So you can build these groups together. But typically what happens is, in this case here, I don't need to break them out. So I'm just going to come and say edit here and say whenever the schedule is, whenever it's done in order entry and it's Iowa and it's taxable for Des Moines, here's the tax detail that we're going to use. We're going to use Iowa Des Moines. So whenever it returns this schedule ID, it's going to grab this detail ID, which is where the percent and where the GL account and the tax authority reside. Okay, so it is kind of similar. Again, I'll mention the Sage 300 CRE product, Timberline, your tax groups and tax rates. So this is where you're setting up your tax groups, really, the schedule ID. So what you need to do is come together with, in this case, a one-to-one relationship between a schedule and a detailed ID. And you'll notice here in my list, I have one for Johnson County, and then I also have ones for the exempt groups, because if they're an IE exempt, we need to grab a different ID, a detailed ID. We need to grab the exempt ID, which is really going to return a 0 value for the rate. Okay, so you're going to go through and really build in most cases, it'll be a one-to-one to what you just did in the tax detail IDs. And then you'll notice, I'm not sure if I have any set up, but let's go over to purchasing. Let's take a look. And I go to my schedules here, And, you'd have it something like this, PO-IA, Des Moines, and you'd do it there that way. So you need to do those as separate schedules. And once you have all of your schedules listed out, the last step is to put it all together with a schedule mapping. And this is where you take all of the aspects of what we just went through and get that created. Let's go back into order entry. And let's go into our schedules. So again, if we look here, we have our different schedules. And we should be good to go for the schedule mappings next. So we're going to go ahead now under order entry, schedule maps. And this is really where we're going to put this all together. So what you can do is this can be specific to a particular transaction definition, or it can be for all. So for example here, you'll notice that they said whenever quick bill invoices is used and the item group is taxable and the contact says exempt for Des Moines, then use this schedule. If it's a quick bill invoice and it's taxable and it's Iowa Des Moines, not exempt, use this schedule. Okay, so this schedule is going to grab the detail ID with that 7%. This schedule is going to grab the Iowa exempt, which is 0%. Now, do you need the transaction name? No, you don't. You can come into here and say add, and you can say if the item tax group, and this is your item list, this is where we're putting it all together now at the end, is taxable. So if the item is taxable and the contact is Des Moines, so that's going to be taxable, either the customer, the vendor, the project contact is Des Moines, then I want you to grab the tax schedule of the OEIA Des Moines. And it's not specific to a particular transaction definition. So this is going to list all of the transaction definitions that you have set up in your system. There's the project contract invoice, the T&M one, the customer PO, the subcontractor, whatever you might have in the system here. Well, in this scenario, we're going to leave that blank because I want to do it for all the different definitions. So you can just say save. And so this becomes kind of the map as to how it's going to grab the right tax group for you based on this setup. So again, what you need to do is create the criteria and then say, for example, there's the non-taxable. So if it's a non-taxable item, like labor, and the tax group is Des Moines, so still a taxable tax group, but we're going to grab the IA non-taxable tax schedule, which returns a 0. So you put it all together with these tax schedule mappings, and you can have a unique one for order entry. You can have a unique whole new set of schedule maps for purchasing, including use tax, and then the same thing for accounts receivable if you use accounts receivable. So once you get through, let's go back to order entry, your authorities, your details, your schedules, and your mappings, you have the setup in place to be able to start calculating sales tax in your system when transactions are put through, for example, order entry or purchasing. There is one last step to do in the setup in order to have these calculate correctly, and that's go ahead and do the transaction definition configuration specifically for sales tax, which we'll go through in the next session of this training set. So, any questions or comments, as always, feel free to list them, and we'll check you out in the next session on the transaction definition specific configurations for sales tax. Thank you.